What is up, guys? PoliticsGaming here, and today we are going to be doing a brand new election prediction just a week from the election. And today we are going to be talking about the states in gray. We are going to be talking about Arizona, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Florida. Florida is a special state because they are one of the biggest bellwethers in the United States. They actually requested almost 6 million ballots whenever the registration period was going on. And then now we are actually nearing the 6 million mark in mail-in and early in-person ballots returned. You'll see that they are overwhelmingly Democratic. So whenever you actually see these in-person ballots start to come in, you will see that the Republican ballots really start to trend upwards. I've actually been watching Florida for the past couple of days, and I actually have seen the Republicans gaining in this percentage points, and then the Democrats really starting to trend downward in terms of early in-person ballots being returned. This was as high as about 46 the other day, and then now it's at 43. So this really is starting to show that the Democrats aren't performing as well as they would have wanted to in states such as Florida. Now going over to the state of Arizona, one of these same scenarios has been happening in the state of Arizona. What I've actually been hearing is that the registration, especially in Florida and Arizona, Republicans have actually been gaining among registrations. Democrats have been gaining as well. However, Republicans have been holding their ground basically this entire time, and it's really commendable for the Republicans because it's really showing that they are going to be a very hard party to beat on election day. We're a week away from seeing who the next president is, and it's going to be a nail-biter. Voting in Arizona is up 62% from this time in 2016. In 2016, 1.02 million people voted in the state of Arizona, and then now we have 1.6 million people that have already cast their ballot in the state of Arizona. Coming over to North Carolina, we have 3 new polls that are out of the state. We have one from Rasmussen, one from Trafalgar, and then one from CBS. The Rasmussen poll has Trump ahead 1 point. The Trafalgar poll has Trump ahead 3 points, but then the CBS poll comes back and then puts Biden ahead 4 points. That was a refresh. But, however, in the past couple of days, in the final 2 to 3 weeks before the election, Trump has actually surged from 45.5% all the way up to about 48% in RCP averaging. So that means that Biden's lead has almost been cut and almost entirely in half if we actually look. Yep, his lead in North Carolina at a high of 3.3 points has now just plummeted to just 1.2 points. So that is really bad news for Biden in the state of North Carolina. But then if we go over to the next state, this is going to be the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has been infamous in the final weeks of this election. During the debate last week, we actually saw Biden basically condemn oil and say that he wanted to get rid of the oil industry. However, he did come out immediately afterward. He basically came out and was just like, yeah, I want to get rid of oil. But then he just turns around and says, no, that's not what I want to do. It's like this man doesn't know whether he wants to appeal to the very, very left-leaning parts of his party or if he wants to appeal to that centrist blue-collar worker in Pennsylvania that we always talk about. We always talk about blue-collar workers, and they're usually in these states. So it's going to be really telling whether Biden can actually keep this minimal sort of kind of just outside of the margin of error lead beside this CNBC poll and Rasmussen poll where they have him 3 points and then 2 points. Even for NBC, which is a Democratic poll, that Biden is only ahead in the state of Pennsylvania by only 2 points. One of the biggest things about Pennsylvania, if we actually talk about it a little more in depth, is that if Trump even shows signs of getting close in Pennsylvania or even leads Pennsylvania by a considerable margin or even a smaller margin, if that lead is very consistent throughout the entire state after Philadelphia and Allegheny counties come in, we're definitely going to see that Trump can pull this off in the state of Pennsylvania. And if Trump wins Pennsylvania, it is absolutely over for the Biden campaign. There is no path to victory if Biden cannot win Pennsylvania. So if that is going to be the case and we are going to see Pennsylvania very close or even Trump pulling ahead in Pennsylvania by a wider margin than he did in 2016, then that is going to be the worst case scenario for the Biden campaign at this point. So if we look at Wisconsin's early voting data, we will actually see that in the state of Wisconsin, 1.6 million people requested ballots, and it was 42, 36, and then 22 for the other ballots. This is actually up 896% from 2016. However, if we just want to concentrate on mail-in and early in-person ballots returned, we will see that 1.3 million ballots have finally been returned to the state of Wisconsin. So then we actually have the numbers here, which is 79% mail-in and 21% in-person ballots. Now, if we go over to party registration, we will see that the Republicans actually have a lead in the state of Wisconsin. 37% of Democratic ballots have been returned, 42% of Republican ballots have been returned, and then 21% of other ballots have been returned. Usually that other just basically means it's probably just an independent ballot, which it allows them to vote for not only independent candidates, but also multiple Republican and Democratic candidates. So it's kind of like a cross-party kind of thing. So we go back over to the map, and then we're going to go ahead and start filling this in. So going off of the voter data that we see in the states of Florida and Arizona, I definitely would throw those into the Republican column. Some early voting data coming out of the state of Arizona has actually been showing that Democrats have been losing their leads consistently throughout the state of Arizona. In 2018, they elected a Democratic senator who campaigned extremely hard throughout the state. And now they have another Democratic candidate that is up for election, Mark Kelly, who is a former astronaut. Even with a very strong senatorial candidate that might actually win his election, we've been seeing that in Arizona, Republicans have been showing out a little stronger than their Democratic counterparts. So in that sense, I'm going to go ahead and give Arizona over to the Republican Party. So we're going to be sticking with the Republican Party for now. Going over to Florida, some of the early voting data has been showing that Democrats have been getting their leads cut all throughout the state of Florida. And in Florida, I really can't see Joe Biden winning this state. Joe Biden's campaign that is actually excessively more liberal than past Democratic campaigns, it's not really an appealing campaign for a lot of Floridian voters, especially Hispanic Floridians. So I'm going to go ahead and give Donald Trump the state of Florida. Going up to North Carolina, we talked about North Carolina earlier and how North Carolina could actually go over to the Democratic Party. It hasn't gone to the Democrats since 2008. It actually voted for Romney in 2012 and voted for Trump in 2016. So using those past trends, we could actually say that North Carolina could stick with the Republican Party. However, depending on what black turnout will be looking like in the state of North Carolina, that really will tell whether Biden can actually win. We may see Republicans lose ground in North Carolina, but still edge out within the state. That's probably going to be my prediction. In these states, it's going to be a nail biter, but I think Donald Trump can still edge it out within a couple of points. And it's going to be within the margin of error, some of the polls that we're seeing. But I still think that it's going to be close. And then if we go up north, we're going to see Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, otherwise known as the Great Lakes. These states are very special because they are the industrial heartland of the United States. Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have also very much been Democratic in terms of past presidential elections. We are going to see for the very first time one more Rust Belt state go to the Republican Party for another election cycle. So going up to the state of Minnesota, I'm going to go ahead and give this over to the Democrats. This presidential election is really going to be coming down to these three states right here. Minnesota has not voted for a Republican since 1972, in which Richard Nixon basically washed every other state except Massachusetts. But if we go over to the state of Wisconsin, look at this. Trump only needs 10 electoral votes if he wins Florida, Arizona, and North Carolina. But if we look at Wisconsin, Wisconsin is showing a lot of Republican support, especially in terms of the early votes that has been coming out. Early in-person ballots have been showing a Republican lead consistently throughout this entire campaign, throughout the closing days of the campaign. So if we go off of that, and then enough Republicans actually do turn out to vote for President Trump, then yes, Wisconsin will be going over to the Republican Party. I think Wisconsin is very likely to support the president in this scenario, but it really depends. Michigan, I've really kind of been going back and forth on Michigan. Sometimes I feel like that Trump can win it. Other times I feel like that Biden can win it. But in this scenario, it really depends on whether President Trump can actually get that black turnout to go up in his favor. We have been seeing a lot of polls that have been showing Trump getting black approval ratings of as high as 40%, according to Rasmussen. If Trump can actually affect that on the national level, the Democrats won't even have a chance. But going over to Michigan, I think that Joe Biden, really depending on black turnout, if Trump can actually gain among black voters, then I think Michigan can go over to the Republican Party. It really does depend. For the sake of this scenario, I'm going to leave Michigan as a toss-up. But going over to the last state, which is going to be the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has been in the spotlight because of that debate moment in which Joe Biden just said that he will end the entire oil industry. That really put him in danger in campaign terms in states such as Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and even Texas. Texas is definitely not going to be going to Biden anytime soon. However, I do know that Kamala Harris is actually going to be coming to Dallas on a campaign trip, so that's going to be interesting to see what she says over here in Texas. Going over to Pennsylvania, I think that Donald Trump possibly, really depending on what the Philadelphia turnout is going to look like, if Biden can get Philadelphia, and if that really could help him, but if turnout, or if his numbers in this area, just this area right here, if these numbers are anywhere close to 60 or even 50, Biden will not be able to win the state of Pennsylvania. His numbers will definitely get outwashed by a lot of the rural vote that is going to overwhelmingly possibly come out in support of the Trump administration. With the oil comments that might end up hurting Biden in the end, this might actually be the October surprise that Donald Trump needed to win this election. And he already won it by winning the state of Wisconsin. But just with Pennsylvania, that's all Trump needs to sign Biden off for the rest of the year. Going back over to Michigan, it's really depending on what turnout looks like in Michigan. But it really might end up being a Trump victory. Pennsylvania could just end up going over to the Democrats, really depending on what Philadelphia and Allegheny County turnout look like. But in any case, with the oil comment, even with Trump's behavior and all that, some people, from what I've been hearing, would rather have bad behavior than a bad economy. So this would end up looking exactly like the 2016 margins, 306 electoral votes to 232. This does also project that Nebraska 2 and Maine 2 would be going over to the Trump administration. This isn't a for sure thing. It really just depends on what turnout looks like. I might even cast Michigan over to the Democrats, but that ends up putting us at 290 to 248. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Guys, do you want to see me stream on election night? It is a week away, so if you guys want to see an election night stream, let me know in the comments below whether you want to see that. Basically, I would have a couple of people on, and we would be going over the results as they come in, and then talking about what the campaigns could have done differently if the election is basically called by that night. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you want to see that, just let me know down below.